right, we are all good to go. Zoom
All
is
right.
on our side today, which is
Ah,
great.
yeah.
Um,
First time for me actually with Zoom. I've never tried this before. So
oh, okay. And I picked Zoom as like the platform because it's somewhat more common because there's so many options, but it's a finicky. It likes to play
yeah.
little tricks. So
Aha, okay, okay.
so we'll keep an eye out, but we're starting strong that we can all hear and see each other. So
Yeah, yeah.
well, first and foremost, thank you guys for your time and being on. I'm really excited because I'm personally a fan. So I appreciate that.
Thank you very much for having us here.
So the I remember because I heard you guys. I felt like I was a latecomer, but I heard you when Silence came out. I think it was streaming Puppeteers or something on the Inside Out website, and I heard you guys for the first time, and I think I just put it repeat, like kept playing it. This is before like the streaming services, and I was just my brain broke. I remember just being absolutely blown away. Um, but I unfortunately I don't think a lot of my listeners probably know you guys, and which is one of the main reasons I was like, well, we got to talk for me, and so I can share more of as much as I can with my little reach. So, and I hate to go cliche question right off the bat, but could you describe a little bit of like what you are, like what's the sound, what's the vibe, like if you had to explain it, because I've always had trouble explaining it, to be honest, when I'm trying to explain what you guys do.
Yeah, well, you're not alone in that. Yeah, because we have problems ourselves by explaining. We can name a few bands and well, how can we describe Act's music? I would say it's a huge combination. We don't have any rules whatsoever when it comes to music. Either Ola and me, when we present a new song, it can be, we never know what kind of style it would be. So it's always very exciting to hear what we have come up with. So it can be reggae and backbeat tune, and it can be hard rock. It can be really progressive, complicated with time signatures. But we always focus on melody. That's the main thing. That's what we, really aiming at, to get a great melody out of it. But other than that, what can you say, Ola, to describe our music? It's all over the place.
Yeah, but I think for somebody who hasn't heard us and would like, I would say we're somewhere in between, would you say, Electric Light Orchestra and Dream Theater? Somewhere.
That's actually really well put.
Yeah, even if it doesn't feel like a fair description, I think that's what people can relate to.
Right.
And maybe and if you put some jellyfish into it, and I mean, both me and Jerry have listened a lot to Beatles and 10cc and those bands as well. And I think you hear a lot of that in it as well.
Well, and it's interesting that you said all those bands, and because it, as you say it, I'm like, oh yeah, of course. And I'm just gonna make a quick side note and say that I'm so glad you mentioned Jellyfish, because I fell in love with them, but I heard them way after I had heard you guys. So you guys were already in like my top 5. And then I heard, Spilt Milk, and I was like, oh no, I didn't like, I love that you don't really find a lot of bands that, in my opinion, that capture that, like, that can go super upbeat, uplifting, but then like turn dramatic and melodic, but keep the hooks the whole time. So
and they're funny too.
Oh, they're funny too, right?
Yeah.
Like that's like the silliness, and somehow mixing like relatable concepts of like human lives, people. Because you guys, it seems, and you do it too, because it seems like a lot of your albums, you put people in weird situations, but they're people, like people that you can relate to. Is there an intention, I think, to kind of go with those like human elements in your music?
Yeah, it was especially in the beginning. We started out and everybody called us a progressive or symphonic rock band. And we were like, yeah, well, maybe we are, but we won't sing about dragons and castles. the old, Yes thing, and maybe
Mhm.
Genesis in some. But so we want to do songs about, like, exactly what you said about ordinary people and putting ordinary people in weird situations and stuff. We like that, to get a good laugh, and some there's some kind of intelligence behind it as well, to think like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense for what you guys do. And what you said before kind of piqued my interest as well, because you say you don't know where the song is going to go. So I wonder, and then you said, but you did have an intention of not doing certain things like that, like doing the Storm the Castle song over and over again. But so where's the balance when you create something, since you guys have been creating art for so long, like between your intention saying, hey, this is what my plan is, versus letting it kind of unravel itself? There's got to be some kind of balance between the two.
Are you thinking music wise or lyric wise?
Well, I mean, either way, just like when you start a song, I mean, musically, do you kind of let it happen on its own, and then lyrically you have intention, or is it just a free for all?
Well, it differs. I mean, we're working right now. We're in the middle of this EP, a quartet of. That was something that me and Ola just discussed. That after the Circus Pandemonium album, which was an epic album, what's called can't hit the wall. I can't find the word. Concept album.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So then we want to do something new, and we tried these 4 EPs. Why don't we do one big picture, like a huge picture, and put out like a puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
So you can only say the first EP is like, I'm just saying that we're always planning stuff before we go into the studio or to make a new project. So this was this project that we are working on right now, that we're going to do the first musical puzzle, ever. Like, you will see it when you get the 4th EP. You will get the whole picture of it. But that's the way we work, and we do it on a lot of our older albums as well. Let's do a long one. To say, okay, what should this be about? On the first album, we had personalities.
Right.
It's a wide, you can write so much about personalities. And that goes with the music as well. So if we're starting this epic with a little intro, a little nice little tune, then we think, we got to do something fast here. Okay, second song, we do it fast. And, it's a great progress when you write songs, because you get really eager to go on and make different stuff all the time.
Right.
I think it's funny, because when we did the last epic, which is 20 years ago now, we said this will be the last time we do a concept, and we broke that rule just a couple of years later, I think, when we were doing Silence, and again we were doing a concept song at the end, and then we did Circus Pandemonium, once again a concept, and now we're doing a concept again. I think it's just how we work. We need to have some sort of start
Theme.
with we start with a theme. We start with images in our heads, and those images become something that we brainstorm around, and we get lots of ideas from it, both musically and lyrically. And I think that's just become our process now, actually. And I think that we are having a hard time just to write simple one-off songs. It needs to be in a bigger context.
Right.
I don't know why.
It makes sense too, because it's almost that you're just acknowledging the theme, because I feel like a lot of bands, if they really looked at their 12-track song that is all different, you could probably find some way to connect a lot of these dots, because you're in that same headspace, and you're recording, and you're exploring these ideas. At least I like that you guys focus that and say, okay, here's the thing. Now let's put it in a context of a circus or a context of personalities or a kind of apocalyptic thing with this new. So it's like you put it into a story, and then that kind of funnels your art in that direction, which that's what I'm hearing, and I really like that because I feel like a lot of you kind of get a lot of it. It kind of has more legs to, like, it has more to chew on as a listener.
Mm, absolutely. The first idea of the long ones came actually from the Beatles Abbey Road album. You know, I think it's the B-side on that, with all those little short snippets.
Mhm.
So it wasn't, the inspiration didn't come from Genesis, or we have never written, you know, like a huge song. Well, we did actually when we first met, a 23-minute long song, but we got rid of that. We wanted, you know, to people to, I want to hear the third part of the long one, you know, so you could pick that out. So
Right.
it will never get boring. That's the deal with ACT. You shouldn't get bored listening to us. You know,
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I mean, I definitely don't think you guys come off boring at any point. The minute you think you know what's going on, you guys will turn, but you still put those hooks in my head. And you know, I think that's kind of one of those things that gets left off. You know, and I was thinking this lately because I listen to, you know, I'll go on Spotify and I'll pick like new release metal, or I'll find like a prog playlist of like new stuff. And as much as I like a lot of, you know, I can appreciate a good atmosphere and a good soundscape, and I really can. I'm finding a lot of bands in the progressive scene have kind of left riffs behind, left hooks behind, and they'll just do like kind of rhythmic, you know, gent chugging stuff, and then layer over it and layer over it. And I'm like, yeah, and it sounds great. I'm like, this sounds cool. It's a cool sound. But then I'm not singing it. I don't go back to it. And I feel like you guys definitely have that element where it's like, there's some of your songs that I'm sure will come up in my brain on my deathbed. Like they're so deep into the hook is so deep. So do you think that, you know, writing riffs and hooks and like you said earlier, melodies, all those things are important when kind of constructing a song?
I think
what was yeah.
yeah, well, I think we don't come from that place, listening to metal or gent. As we said in the beginning, we have listened to Beatles, Jellyfish, 10cc. It's all about the melodies and the vocals. So I think that's pretty much where it starts. It can start with a riff as well, of course, but at the end of the day, when a song is like finished and we listen to it, we will try to focus on the bits that have the best melodies and
Right.
yeah, the vocals and the choirs. That's the most important things.
Right. And with that being said, how do you know when the song is finished? You're writing a song, you sit with it probably for however long you have to, and how do you know when you're like, this is done? Because it could be an unending thing.
Yeah, and I think the process have changed. When we were younger and we rehearsed more, we kind of did the songs more together in the rehearsal room, and we knew when the song was finished. Nowadays we do demos and we listen to the demos, everybody, and we have opinions about it. So I think nowadays the songs are more or less done when the rest of the guys hear it, and it's just arrangements. And before that, we I don't know, what do you say, Jerry? I think the process have changed a bit.
Yeah, but you just feel it, you know. We've done it since we were kids almost. No, but but you can feel
it be? Yeah, sorry, I
Yeah.
forgot the main question. But can
Yeah.
it be when you start to get bored?
Okay.
Then you know, then you know it's either finished or not good enough.
Right. Okay. That's an interesting dynamic to try to have to decide on. Are you done or are you trash?
Yeah.
Wow. So, and you know, it's interesting because being a creative person, especially within music, you know, you have the writing process, you have the recording process, you have live performances, all of which have kind of different energies connected to them. Is there any element of like which one of those that you really gravitate towards? Like, are you love writing? Because I remember when I was more active musically, I loved the writing. I loved writing it, but once I got in the studio, I'd get frustrated, and live, I was just always, it was always in my own head. And I was a lot younger, but I loved the writing. I loved that energy of like seeing something sprout out of nothing. Is there any, you know, do you find that those different elements are all equally important to you, or do you really love one or the other?
For me personally, I like them all, but the writing process is just incredible because you never know when it happens. You know, I just sit here with my keyboard banging, playing, you know, shit,
Mm-hmm.
and but sometimes it just bam, you stop at something. You know, here's something, and you play it like 20 times, and it still works, and you immediately I start to record it directly, you know, and I do a basic melody over it, and then I let it go, and then I come back the day after, and if it's still, you know, grabs me like the way when I wrote it the first time, then I know I have something here. Is it the same with you, Ola?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like that.
Yeah, I always found it interesting when I played a lot that I would kind of tell myself that even when moments I didn't feel like playing, I'd be like, I don't know what's going to happen when I pick the guitar up. Like anything can happen. Like I might be like, oh, I don't feel like it or whatever. It's like there could be something there that changes. And then you get in that zone and you're just creating. And this, you know, this can go because a lot of people that listen to this podcast, it's not always exclusively music, of course. And this goes for creating anything you're making. Like once you just getting in the pool of creativity is like when the stuff starts. So picking up the instrument or the paintbrush or the pencil, whatever it is, you know.
Yeah, it can
Yeah, and I
come.
think,
Yeah,
yeah, sorry.
no,
Yeah, I think whatever you do, you should do it, have it as a routine. Do it just for 10 minutes or 15 minutes every day. Just write, and don't care too much about how it sounds or if it's good or bad. Record it if you kind of like it, and just keep doing that. And by day 100, you have 100 ideas to listen back to, and some of it will be good, and some you can continue to work on. So
that is exactly the way Benny Andersson in ABBA actually works. He sits there by the piano each and every day, you know, between 9 to 5 every day. And he says the same thing, you know, it can go months, nothing happens. And then it just, but I'm there. He says like that.
that's actually how I need to do it. If I sit for like 2 hours once every month, nothing will come out. Absolutely nothing. And that's how I used to do it. And that's why I didn't come up with anything. So nowadays I sit for 20 minutes every evening, just write, record it, and then I forget about it and listen back after a month or something.
Yeah, I think
I know I've written loads and loads of melodies and main riffs in ACT in the car, actually. So it's great with this thing nowadays. So for some reason, I always come up with melodies when I'm driving or something like that. And I just like, shh, to the family, I've got something to say, you know, sing it. So then I bring it back home.
Maybe I think your brain's relaxing. It's not focusing on doing something that should be good. So that's probably why.
Yeah, and that's why I think people come up with ideas in the shower. You hear that all the time. I had an idea in the shower. It's because you can't do anything. I mean, your mind is free to roam.
Yeah.
And you know, and if you can put that to something active, like create something creatively active, like an instrument, who knows what's going to come out? You know, you might end up with Last Epic. You know what I mean? Like that stuff happens by just touching the instrument and letting it. And it's interesting to see how you've developed too, like noticing, hey, it works better for me when I do it like this, like when you come up with a routine. Because I think that's a big thing. It's almost like experimenting with your own brain. You're like, all right, today I'm going to try to, like you could say, today I'm going to try the 20 minutes first thing in the morning instead of at the evening and see if that feels different. And then trying things and trying your new routines and then finding one that works and
But I mean,
exploring.
it's exactly the same thing with practicing. You do it every day, just over and over again, even if it's boring. And when you have a live gig, you will know all the songs. You don't have to practice. If you do like trying to get the songs right 1 week before, you're doomed. You will play lots of errors during the show.
Right.
That's how it works for me anyway.
That makes sense. Speaking of live gigs, have you, first of all, have you guys played the States ever?
Never.
No.
This is quite a strange, funny little story about the States when it comes to ACT.
Okay.
We were offered a gig back into, well, forget about the date, but we were offered a gig a long time ago. But when exactly during those dates, our singer Herman was getting married. Okay, so we had to postpone. Like they call again, and they called the year after. But this time, during these dates that we were supposed to play, Herman was having his first baby. So we had to, oh, thanks, but no thanks. We can't go over it. And then it took like all the way to 2020. So, and then they called us from Prague Stock, I think. I don't remember. Yeah. And then the pandemic came. So 3 times,
Right.
So
right. Yeah, I was wondering that because I always go to the Prague Power Festival, so it's a little bit more metal, but they still have a lot of other prog bands there, and I always watch other prog festivals announcing in the States, and I'm like, how has that not happened? Like, so now at least it makes sense how that has not happened.
Yeah.
So speaking of live gigs, and I tend to just kind of shoot from the cuff on this podcast. I have notes, but I really just try to see where the conversation goes. And as you were talking about live performing, I haven't done it in a very long time. It was high school and college. I was in metal bands and all that. But I recall one time, a couple times weird things would happen. Like I would forget a song, but just forgot the opening riff or something. But another time I recall I was doing the circle headbang thing that you do, not you, but and I got my hair caught on the guitar headstock.
Ouch.
For the rest of the song. Like there was no way out. Like I just had to finish the song. It was like a thrash metal song too, so there was no stopping my hand. So I just did that for the entire time. Is there any like weird mishaps or any weird stories about playing live that you have?
Oh yes, there are quite a few. Ola, can you tell him about the Peter thing, the bass?
When you told me about the hair, I thought about Peter, because both me and him used to have really long hair, and we were staying at the same side back in the days, and he used to get stuck in my guitar. So sometimes I had his hair on the tuners after the gig. But that wasn't the story you were thinking about. We had, on one occasion, we played in a town here in Sweden. It was one of the strangest gigs we have ever done. I think there were 2 persons in the audience.
This was back in 95 or 96 or something.
Yeah. One of the guys was all dressed in a white tuxedo and with a long beard. And the other guy was a guy from Finland who just was standing in the audience screaming in Finnish. And in the middle of the gig, he just jumps up at the stage and he grabs Peter's bass and starts chewing on it.
What?
With his teeth. So there was big bite marks on the back of his very expensive bass. So he
Wow, you
was
got to have
really
you
yeah,
got to have
nobody knew why he did it, and then he
yeah.
jumped off the stage again, and yeah.
Wow.
There's been loads of those stuff. You know, Herman, our singer, he is really active on stage. He's like Freddie Mercury on steroids. Like,
Mm.
so in some occasions when we were playing a tour with Saga out in Europe, he fell off the stage. You know, just really high stage. It didn't see it. Fell down to the audience and stuff like that. So
Oh
it's
wow.
been loads of stuff. It's really
Yeah.
wild. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean you're out there then. There's like you said, there's no hiding the mistakes, but there's also no hiding, and you just have to kind of roll with it. You know, you kind of get to do a lot of other things behind the scenes, but it's always fun to kind of hear those moments, and that everybody has those kind of weird things that happen when you're
Oh yeah.
performing. um so I kind of sticking around the just being creative and stuff, because that's so applicable to just anyone. Would you say that, since you've been making music for so long, would you say that there's any lessons that you've learned that kind of go outside of regular, like outside of the music into your regular life?
Hmm.
And I can give you, for example, like I've noticed since I started this podcast, I I'll put it, I'll create it, I'll get in touch with the people, I'll do the whole bit, do the interview, and then once I put the interview out, I'm like, it's no longer mine. I'm not going to look at what, like, it doesn't matter what people say, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to listen to it again. And so I've noticed that that kind of informs my life in the sense of like, now I know I can do work, I can do it as hard as I can, do it my best, and then after that it's no longer my control. So it's kind of helped me loosen my control over creating things, like I'm allowed to create things, but what happens after they're created is up to the world.
Yeah,
I
well,
have, yeah, you can start if you want.
yeah, well, it's like that when you record an album because you work so hard on it for so long, and you hear the songs like 1 billion times, and so when it's out, it's like, okay, we're done with this one, like that. So I can, yeah. What do you say?
Absolutely, and what I was thinking, if there's something I have like learned during all these years, is that for me it works if I don't spend too much time thinking about what's good or bad. I finish it. And when I have finished it, I know I've reached the end. I can go back and like edit it, but I need to finish it because then I know that's like my strategy nowadays. Do something, finish it, then go back. And I just thought about what you said, Jerry, about being in the process, and once it's out, we're already, me and Jerry, we are working on songs for the next EP. And I think both you and me have kind of forgotten about the EP that is going to be released on the 3rd. I myself have kind of let it go now. So I'm on the next EP now.
That's really interesting, and it does reflect kind of, similar experiences because, sometimes I'll record a batch of these. I have 2 interviews today, and, I'll try to, I'll plan to put you guys' out near, when the album comes out. And but then people will message me like, oh, you guys talked about this. I'm like, I don't even remember what, like, that was. I'm writing questions for the next one. Like I'm here. And it's interesting because I used to write, I reviewed one of the EPs for a magazine, an online magazine. And it's so interesting to think about it from your perspective, knowing that like once you guys release it, like you've already done everything. Like you're done. And we're all just now talking about it. So now we have to like, now you got to come back and listen to us blab for a while about
but
what
you
you
also
just
think
released.
about, I think you think about what can we do next that is even better. And I think that's why you're doing this. I think you're hunting like the perfect song, and there will never be a perfect song, and that's why you continue. You just have to do it again and again and again because it's never perfect. So
Right. And I love your thought about just finishing, because I mean, I can't count how many people I've known that, including myself, who started a new thing. This is the new thing I want to try, and they just never finish it because they're already judging whether it's good or bad in the midst of doing it. And like you said, like
Yeah,
finishing and then going back is
because
huge.
the easy part of being creative is having an idea. Like
Mm,
you get an idea for a verse or a chorus. The hard part is to actually do something about it and to finish it.
mm.
That's the work. And that's why when you have a good idea, you can't let it go. You just have to do it. You have to do the work and finish it.
Yeah, tell me
Otherwise,
about tell me about it.
yeah,
On the first EP that we released, Rebirth, I think it's the first song called Ruler of the World. Those verses in that song, I wrote them when I was like 20,
Wow.
19, 20 years old. And I loved those, the verses, but I couldn't come up with a chorus for one way or another. I have no idea, but these verses have followed me. I'm 48 now, and we released it a couple of years ago. So
Yeah.
these have just followed me around. And then suddenly, and I have always tried for each and every album release or to record a new album, I have always brought up those verses for myself, not to the guys, but for myself. I gotta do something about it. I gotta find the chorus, you know. But then suddenly now, a couple of years ago, it just came. And it was, yeah, that's it. Now it's here. And
Right.
then I presented to the guys, oh, we recognize those verses, man. You know, like, yeah, now they
That's
found
cool.
their home. Yeah. So,
Right.
yeah.
but that's another lesson I have learned. If you come up with a good idea and you play it over and over again, you're trying to do, like, you have a verse and you're trying to do a chorus, you might end up being stuck in the verse because you practice on stopping where the verse ends. You're not practicing continuing it, so you will get stuck there. And then I think the only way to do it is like you did. You just have to wait until one day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Probably put it in a locker somewhere and
Hmm.
give it a chance some years later.
It's a very interesting, you know, the whole music thing, the writing thing. It's really interesting where it all comes from, you know.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well,
And I have to say, I have learned, because Jerry's been extremely productive. I don't know anybody who can be this productive. How did you even write like the first 3 albums that quick? When you listen to it today, I can't understand it. So I have learned a lot from Jerry just by listening to our old music, and yeah.
right. And it's cool too, because there's some element of kind of trusting that the thing will come when it's supposed to come, which is another lesson that I mean, obviously we should be doing the work, we should be like building routines that help our lives and all this stuff, but at the same time, as hard as you wanted to, you couldn't force the chorus. I mean, you probably could have, but you wouldn't have been happy with it. But it was coming whenever it was ready to come, and that's kind of a cool thing
Yeah.
to see in the music. And how that happens, who knows? Sometimes I think like I'll have an idea of something creative, and I'll kind of think I'll just let it simmer, and I won't do it. Then I'll see somebody else do the exact same thing, and I'll be like, oh, it's like the idea was just floating around in the ether, looking for like somewhere to go, like some antenna that worked. And but sometimes, like you said, just being patient, waiting for it to work, and then but as you keep it alive, it's like you were keeping life in those verses until they were ready.
And it's
Absolutely.
strange. Sometimes it's just one chord that is wrong. You can sit with a thing and it just sounds awful, and you work with it and you can't get it right. And in the end, you find some chord that you didn't. You do it by mistake, and you just, oh, was it that easy to find a solution?
Right.
Yeah, that's it, Ola. You really hit the, wow, exactly. And that has happened to me loads of time. It's always, not always, but mostly mistakes that lead the song to a different place, and it's a wonderful thing. Just happens, Oops, oh wait, like that.
Right.
It's funny with computers nowadays, because when you work on something and you start like you're doing a demo and you're doing the drums, and you might do some copy paste and you paste it at the wrong section,
Yeah.
and it sounds, wow, that sounds so cool. And then you start to work around with that idea instead. And yeah, that's
Wow.
cool.
It's also like everything you guys say about your process and how you see the whole process keeps reminding me of ways that this could just be regular life stuff. Like the idea that sometimes the thing that mistake ends up leading you to the best thing.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like you could say, oh man, I lost my job. This is the worst. And then 2 months later, you have this new thing that you love or whatever. That could be any, that's why they talk about failure so much, about, how useful failures are in growing and stuff. And I'm hearing it like in the music that you guys write, knowing that like these songs that I love so much could have come from a mistake that you made. It's
Yeah,
just
exactly.
Yeah, mistakes, and you also give each other ideas. I get, I get so many ideas from our drummer, Thomas. We start recording, and he's doing some amazing stuff and some subtle stuff on the hi-hat maybe, and you just, I wanna be part of that. I want to do something with that. So you get lots of ideas from
right.
the other guys.
Exactly. And that's the whole, when we always start to record the drums. That's the first thing. So and then we get the drum files, and then we start to work individually on the songs. And that exactly what Ola says. That's where the real work, the arranging stuff. There are lots of stuff already arranged in here that on the demo. But like Ola said, when Thomas is hitting something or doing something different that doesn't sound exactly like our demo, then we start to think in different ways. And it was that on this album, the latest one. It happened quite a lot on this. So it was a tricky album or EP to record. This was the hardest actually, because we were all working really creative. And you should see the message. We have a group where we always write. So there were loads of songs on this EP that changed completely, not almost completely, different parts and stuff. It's a great process. Yeah.
What else I like especially when you talk about hearing the drums, just something little different, and you being like, ooh, I want to be part of that. It reminds me of, and I used to, and I know, practice and working at being a musician is work, but we always say, I play guitar, I play keyboard. Like that word play, I think is really important. And when you said, oh, he's doing that, it almost made me think like when you're a kid, you're like, I want to play. I'll play with you. And he made up a little thing like here's a new game. Oh, ooh, let me play. Here's my, even if you're like, I'll be Superman. Okay, I'll be, but that play, that element of play is kind of what you're doing. Now you've honed it to like make it a real, like, functioning machine, but at the same time there's still play involved. And I always liked, I feel like that word got forgotten when you're like, oh, I play guitar. It's like, yeah, that means I practice, but it also is just finding notes, playing around, seeing what happens. And I like that that's still happening within the band.
And I think we really are doing it as a band, and sometimes we take it to an extreme where I myself can think, this is a bit phony, it's cringe. Should we really do this? And then Jerry says, yeah, let's do it, because who cares? We think it's fun. It's not serious. So those elements that sometimes can feel a bit odd, it becomes a really, really good, different thing in the song.
Right. Yeah, I feel like being uncomfortable, maybe that's like a nice little compass to be like, I don't know about this. Be like, all right, well, now I got to do it. Like,
It was the same thing. Do you remember, Ola, when we came up with the concept for Circus Pandemonium? I think I came up with the circus theme, and I presented it to you, and you said like, wait a minute, isn't this like a cliche? It feels like a cliche. We play progressive rock and we'll do a circus album. I don't know. But and then you turn and you said that's exactly why we are doing it. And let's twist it in our way. Because when people hear, a progressive rock album is called about a circus, but it's not obvious when it comes to our music, because we play around with all these stuff, that nobody else does.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because you're gonna do it through your lens. You could, even though we said it earlier, you could write a Dragon Castle song, and I bet you anything it would not be anything we'd ever heard before.
And I think actually we had a sound engineer that during last epic, I think he said, I don't get your music. It sounds like circus music. And I think we discussed that when we did Circus Pandemonium, because we had done Silence before that. And we kind of, during Silence, we had lots of people saying that we should go into a more commercial direction. We kind of listened to those people a little bit. So there are things maybe on that album that we aren't too happy about, because maybe we listened too much. So when we did Circus Pandemonium, we kind of said, okay, let's do this circus concept cliche, because people are still saying that we're a circus band. So let's do it like really do a circus album.
Right.
It was like, release the beast thing when we did that, because we came from Silence. Silence is not a bad record by any means, but there, like Ola said, there are stuff on it that maybe not fitted us so well. So it was great to do the circus album, because that's real act.
Right. So, and just for because I'm sure your fans will listen to this too, some of, and we'll probably be itching to talk about the upcoming EP. So when you talk about, I mean, Silence and Circus Pandemonium, obviously you can see a major, just like you explained, major difference, both of which I absolutely love. Silence was my first, so I have a little bit of like entry point love for that, of course. But now if we talk about the EPs and how this new one kind of differs that from the other stuff, and how it might be similar, because I found when I listened to it, I found both elements. I found like, ooh, that's new, that's unexpected, and also some stuff that just felt like cozy. Oh, that's ACT, that's the stuff, that's the stuff I'm used to. So could you maybe talk a little bit about the new one? And I know that you're done with it, but like how the process of creating it, or anything you want to say about it, because just I know your fans are going to be like, well, the new one's coming out, let's talk about this.
Yeah, may I start just by the whole thing with these EPs is a really great thing to work with, because we don't have to release a full-length album by ACT. It takes like 6 years to make. So we came up with this idea to stay fresh, to come up with new stuff each and every year, instead of, working on one album for 6 years. So, and that's the great thing about this. I can recommend this to all artists out there to do it like this, actually. And the aim for this one, the latest one, was actually the 80s. That's it, 80s, like that. We tried to do what would ACT sound like if we were in the 80s. That was the aim, or the theme for it. And you can very clearly hear that in some parts. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember the original question. We were talking about the latest EP, how it
Yeah, just
differs, or
yeah, really
but
anything about the latest EP that you want to
yeah,
share.
but I know when we had the songs finished and we were talking about the songs, we kind of said that this is where, I mean, our fans might be expecting us to sound in a certain way because that's what they're used to. And this album will not sound quite like what they're used to. So we kind of, okay, are we okay with that? And we discussed it and we said, we need to challenge ourselves and do new stuff. And by that, we have to challenge our fans as well. We have been playing together for over 25 years. We have done, this is our 9th album. We can't do the same thing all over again. We have to try things, even if that's uncomfortable for us, and even if it's uncomfortable for our fans. So we're well aware that we are challenging ourselves and our fans on this EP. And we might do that on the next EP as well. We think we have the freedom to do it, but we don't have the freedom to be completely like wild and do crazy like something we can't do like
Bee Gees.
no Bee Gees or like a funk album. We still have to be, the core has to be ACT,
Right.
and we need our core elements, but we still have to like, yeah. Like it's funny that you say you hear it on the album that it's different and some elements are the same, because we're well aware of it.
Right, because I mean, it's still your voice as a band. Like it's just like it's a new idea from the same voice almost. Like I can tell who it is, but there are times where I was caught unexpected. But then even to speak to the other side, having the Emily character, right? Which even as I was listening, it was one of those things where it felt like deja vu, where I was just like, why do I know who? I feel like I was like, oh, of course I know. And then like and it just brought that back up. So it's a nice dance. It almost feels like you're, because I think a lot of bands, especially within genres that aren't mainstream, progressive and unexplainable bands, even you and the fans kind of have like the fans at least take it very personal. It's very, you're our little bands, and whatever. And so a lot of times you just kind of go on the adventure with them. You know what I mean? That's how I see it, at least, where it's just like, let's do it. Like whatever they want to do, like I want to hear it. And sometimes it lands with some people, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, I've had favorite bands that put stuff out that I was like, I see what you're doing, but I can't. But the fun part is just going on the adventure with them, I think.
And
Yeah,
we have done, I mean, we have ourselves to blame on some things because we have some of our fans like the more harder parts, the more when we go towards metal. Some say that that's not what they like about us. They like more the poppy stuff. Some like more the queeny stuff. And if we listen too much of all of these, we will just be completely, our brains we can't get it together. So we can't satisfy everybody. We just have to do our thing. And yeah.
we have to stand behind everything that we do. We have to love everything that we release. There's not one single bit that we don't like or love,
Right.
Yeah, it's very important. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that comes across, and I think that's why fans can form a really tight relationship with a band like that, because if the passion's coming through, then you can reflect that back. It's just like, it's just authentic. I think that's kind of the thing. Like being authentic kind of goes a long way in regular life and in creative stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we are approaching an hour, closing in a little bit, and I always ask the same final questions, right? So one of which is, I started this podcast for one of the reasons I started it was just to share things that I like, whether it's a person I find interesting, a philosophy, someone wrote a book. So of course, when you guys mentioned, hey, we're looking for reviewers or whatever interviews, I was like, well, you're in my top 5 of all time, so I'm going to share this with as many people as I possibly can. But that being said, I think it's kind of normal. People like to share stuff, talk about your favorite albums, favorite books, favorite practices, whatever, even just suggestions on how to, what your favorite exercises, like all these things. People like to talk and say, hey, check this out. So if you could suggest something, just whatever, it could be as minuscule as a TV show, or it can be a favorite album, it can be anything at all that you're just like, hey, you guys should check this out. Would you suggest?
I can say something. I just read the Three Body Problem trilogy.
Okay.
It's a sci-fi book. It blew my mind completely. It's
Okay.
I recommend it.
Who's it by?
That's all I say. Sorry?
Who is it written by?
Yeah, I can't pronounce his name. It's a Chinese guy.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, that's
Three
why
Body Problem. Read it.
Yeah, right. Got it. Cool.
I can recommend. Wait a minute. Well, this is this only audio?
It'll be audio and video. We'll do both.
And video. Okay. Then I would recommend this one. Just gonna put my headphones on again.
Okay.
This is really new to me, but it's not new to the world because it's been released. I think it's been out for 10 years or something, but it's new to me. And the whole album, the new album, is I only played on this keyboard.
Okay, so
and
what?
I'm in love. I'm really in love with this. It's the best keyboard I've ever played on.
Yeah.
The sounds are just fantastic, and I'm telling the whole world this.
So
I just love this. It's a Roland FA06, and I know a lot of keyboard players. Oh, that one, but it's new to me, so I recommend this.
Yeah, and that's all. And it's like a new instrument, a new guitar, a new keyboard can bring new life into creative process. So that's cool. That's cool. That's the first time anyone's just grabbed a keyboard off the wall. That's a cool answer. So my last question is, are you familiar with the story of Peter Pan? The Peter Pan story.
Sure.
So in Peter Pan, there's lost boys in Neverland, and those lost boys get some pixie dust, and then they think of a happy thought, and that's what elevates them. It like fills them with joy and makes them fly, and they can fly at that point. So if you were a lost boy in Neverland, what's the happy thought? What's the thing you can think of that just kind of fills you with some joy?
Oh, wow.
Tough question.
Wow. Joy. Well, Swedish snooze, maybe.
What is that? That counts. We'll go with it.
Swedish, we call it snooze. It's we're the only country in the whole world that have this, I think. We put it on the lip. What is it? It's nicotine. Oh. It's nicotine.
Oh, okay.
Not like chewing tobacco. It's like you have it here under your lip.
Okay. You know what?
That's a happy thought. Where's my snooze?
My happy thought is just to think about the day when I quit doing that stuff.
Right. Okay, well, you guys will be a little team in Neverland where you can play off each other.
I thought you had quit, Jerry.
No, I quit. I was doing it for 27 years. Then I quit for 3 years, and then a friend of mine gave me one at the party, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that thing. I like that. I love that thing." So I started again.
You have to do something. My drug is coffee. I drink too much.
Yeah.
Right. We all have a thing that's like that. Like, as easy it is to point fingers and say this is good, this is bad. We all have a thing.
I
Yeah,
know.
we'll say again, you're the first person to suggest nicotine as the happy thought. So well
I'm the
done.
first one bringing down a keyboard and
Right,
showing
yeah.
nicotine to the whole world.
A
Yeah.
lot of firsts on this episode.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else you guys want to share about, new album, anything at all, anything you want to promote? I'm all for it. Otherwise, I'm feeling pretty good if you are.
We
Yeah,
can
we
just
have
say
made.
that we have the first single coming out on Friday. So I don't know if you're gonna send it before Friday, but on Friday.
Yeah, it'll probably, let's see, I'll probably have it either next week or the week after. It'll be closer to the release of the full EP probably.
All right.
But
We have
yeah, so we'll
recorded.
just
We have recorded 3 videos, promo videos for this EP as well, and
Cool.
they will follow along as we release the singles. So
perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
And
again,
if you haven't seen it, go into our YouTube channel and watch our full concert from KB in Sweden.
right, I highly recommend that too. I watched it last night while I was prepping for this, so so good. I mean, it might not, unless someone gets you here to the States, that might be my best shot. So yeah, great. Well, I feel good about this, and I appreciate you guys being on, and we'll always look forward to your new music. Like I said, top 5 all time for me. So I just appreciate all the art you've made. It's amazing.
Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you.
It means a lot. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks a lot, guys. I will talk to you later.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Bye bye.
Take care.
Bye.